ask you, you're clearly recognised as one of the world's most influential female architects. When I think architecture, I think Zaha Hadid. What would you say to aspiring female architects, given the kind of male-dominated world of architecture you talked about just now? What would you say to them in terms of thinking about a future career in architecture?
Well, I think it's very, I think that it's very important for women to be an architect because they do give a different perspective. I don't believe in this thing, women do soft stuff and men do the hard stuff. But they do, I think the world generally needs women in it because they do have a different view. I had no a role model, so to speak, as a woman, for women. So, and also I didn't have to really be like all the others because I'm not a man and so on. So that gave me a lot of freedom and liberated me, and that was really important. But of course, on the other hand, the other problem occurs is that you have the people don't at the time do not think women can do certain things, which is also stupid. I mean, I think through knowledge and skill, you begin to have more confidence. And I think it's the confidence that allows you to persevere in that world. I mean, I think that women are still marginalized, but it's much better. But it's still quite difficult. I mean, I think that, I find now that lots of women in my office who they go out and have children, they do come back and they work very hard and so they're okay. I think when they're out for too long, it becomes more problem to have continuity. I think the continuity in architecture is a big problem. You are out of sync or with your colleagues, you don't know what's going on exactly, so you need to kind of, work harder. And that's what I did. I worked harder than anybody else. Not so that people can take me more seriously, just because the work I wanted to do required so much more research and resolution that I had to really work. We all worked very hard.
And I'm always interested in kind of the architectural design process. How do we have ideas?
At the time at the AA, there was a lot of pressure to have ideas or to have concepts, to have a concept and idea, and then how to develop the idea further. And so it was very important that you know how you operate. At the beginning, you don't really, it's quite intuitive and do things, whatever. And then you have to really be very conscious about how you resolve certain things.
Yes, so it was an
so you have to kind of have a certain clarity of thinking and knowing what the objective is. You have to always have clarity on what you're trying to get at the end.
Which nicely actually does bring us on to a couple of projects you've been working on in China, in Beijing and Shanghai.
They are quite different, but the one which opened 2 years ago, called Galaxy, was how to resolve a very large urban site without doing very tall towers, which in that area they didn't want tall buildings, but not only constricting yourself to a perimeter block, but a perimeter site. So the idea was to kind of build these mini towers, which are like almost like eggs, and but the interesting part about it, it creates a valley on the side. We have been very influenced by kind of topography and landscape, and this kind of landscape organization. So it creates a valley. The valley becomes really as another street, and you can enter the shopping outdoors, so it's not a mall. And there is bridges which connect the buildings together. So at one datum, the buildings are completely all connected on higher ground. So out from the ground to these bridges is all retail, and from then on it's all like offices. They could become housing because the owner of these sites, called Soho China, is based on the idea of doing a loft in Soho, New York. So the idea you can have anything in the building, but there are office and retail, and so this gives you kind of the way you move to the side. You are immersed into the space, and you have a connectivity between one building and the other, and And then all the buildings have atria. So you have the connected place throughout the space.
This connectivity and this dynamism, if you like, between the different parts, different elements, the different volumes of these complexes seems really important.
Yeah, well, I think to us it's important because they are very large. And they are like millions of square feet. And you need to have some other ambition on the side than just going in and shopping. So the idea of meandering and walking around and walking from one building to the other building, is kind of rather nice.
I think it's also important for people moving around there to feel that sense of connectivity,
Yes.
that it's not,
You can
they're
go
not
up
lost.
and look down and you have, this, yeah.
Exactly, and with the landscape around.
And then this year we're opening a new building in Beijing, which is 3 towers. One is quite small, but they are really like a mountain range. So like 3 mountains or 3 rocks or whatever, and they're just very tall buildings, but they are like an ensemble of 3 buildings.
You've designed the new Iraqi Parliament building. How have you, in terms of kind of thinking about political buildings, if you like, and that aspiration that some of them have, a kind of almost saying, this is how we politically are in the world. They're visionary in a way. I visited the Scottish Parliament building several months ago. Thinking pods have been designed into the offices there. There's something around, this is the way we want our politicians to think.
The idea of the project is that the Parliament is a kind of open entity. It's not a sort of monumental building. It's a kind of field of lots of projects, including the main assembly spaces. So they're not very authoritarian, and I think that could give some sort of an indication about the site or to the city that the Parliament is part of the context. It's not a monument to politics, but it's actually part of the texture of the city. I think it's very important to do that. In terms of organization, I really now don't know how they'll organize what it is. I think I don't want to be in this. One of the most beautiful, I think, parliaments were the Oscar Niemeyer ones in Brasilia, and the communist headquarters in Paris, which has an assembly hall. And it was, although it's very non-authoritarian, let's put it that way, but the route and the way you enter these spaces were very ceremonial.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think it's very important that they become part of the texture of the city. They're not isolated. They're not like a giant, big building. Talking of power, it's kind of modest and soft like that.
Yes.
And as also, I think that there is in the Arab world, there is a sort of mentality because of the desert and the dunes and people. The borders are not very outlined, and people drifting around, and the rivers. It's a very different time, I think through urbanization, these changed obviously throughout history, but even there. But it's a very different time, and I think that could be nice.
Yeah, it sounded. Yes, I've done a PhD at the Bartlett, and I'm not an architect myself. Very interested in the way people explore buildings, how the public get in and out and physically, mentally, emotionally engage with the buildings on their streets. So it's been really interesting just to talk to someone I've always admired and,
Thank you. And you teach here?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I do, yeah. So thank you very much, and congratulations on your award today.
Yes, thank you.
Really well done.